Welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast. My name's Nick Ponte. I'm joined with Stephen Clark, my co-host. How you doing, Stephen?
Good, thanks, Nick. I'm excited about today's chat.
Really good one for you today, guys. A couple that I met in Glasgow about 3 or 4 years ago called Elsie and Markus. And they're about 30 years old, huge ambitions. They've acquired a property portfolio of 1.7 million in the space of about 3 or 4 years. So really inspirational chat. What do we go into, Stephen?
It was really good, man. This is what I love about the Scottish Property Podcast, because you bring people, like when it's your turn to choose a guest and bring a guest on, and someone you know if you've watched, then you bring someone on, and it's often someone that I've not heard of. And this is the case with Elsie and Markus, and it's really good because I haven't followed the journey. I didn't know where to start. So the chat was really good for me to see them, see their kind of humble beginnings, and just how phenomenal they've done in such a short space of time, and grit, determination, and just, you know, like they didn't even go for corporate jobs straight out of university. They just went straight into business and into property. And I think it's phenomenal. It was a really good chat.
Yeah, so started off single buy-to-let units round about Glasgow, and they moved to Warrington, and they're now down in the north of England investing in HMOs. Taught they go through some of the numbers on the HMO strategy, which is really interesting. If you think about it, you know, Manchester, Liverpool, only really 3.5 hours from, you know, the central belt. Glasgow, 3.5 hours. So it's something that people might want to look at, you know.
Absolutely. So let's cut to the interview, because I think listeners are going to take quite a lot of value from this. You know, a young couple, growing a large portfolio and property business in such a short period of time. So here's the interview with Markus and Elsie.
Welcome, Elsie and Markus, to the Scottish Property Podcast. We're delighted to have you on. How are you?
Good.
Very good. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on.
It's great to see you. And just so the listeners know, I actually met Elsie and Markus probably back, I would say, 3 or 4 years ago in Glasgow at a networking event in the Village Hotel. And I think you came up to me and you were like, Nick, it's really good to meet you. Really like what you're doing in social media. And I think at that point you were pretty much just starting out. So you used to live in Glasgow, and we had a little chat and stuff like that. And I thought you guys had a really good approach. You seemed like full of energy. I pretty much knew you were going to be successful. I had that feeling. And then I started following you on social media, and roll on 3 or 4 years. And I think at the time you just maybe got your first buy-to-let property. And now, where are you at just now? Like, you've exploded.
Well, I would say it's been it's a journey, you know, up and down. We have now built a portfolio of 1.7 million, so we're close to do 1.7 million property portfolio by end of this year, and we've got a portfolio now with buy-to-lets, HMOs in England, and mixed-use properties. So we are currently going through a planning up to convert a ground floor retail shop, vacant shop, into 2 studios. So that's prior approval. So hoping to do more of that in the future.
Amazing. Well, let's get on to that detail later, because that sounds really cool to dive into that. But let's just roll it back to Glasgow. And, you know, how did you guys meet? How did you end up coming to Glasgow? Because Markus, I think you're German, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just tell us how that all came about and how you met.
So how we've met is actually through university. We're both engineers, and Elsie's from Singapore, I'm from Germany. And there was this course in Glasgow that we both chose. We didn't know each other before. And throughout that course, we thought, well, we want to do something. We want to have a business together. That was the outcome of that course. It was called Innovation Management. And well, we never thought it would be property, but that's what we ultimately chose. And yeah, there we go. We're still doing it.
So what alerted you guys to property and the opportunities that it could bring then?
Well, so right after freshly out of university, we have always wanted to start our own business. So our master degree was in innovation management. So back then, during the course, we were sort of exposed to, you know, the enterprise network to entrepreneurial people. So we thought, you know, after university, perhaps we can jump into it before, you know, landing ourselves into a standard 9 to 5 office job, because we know that we can always find a job.
Yeah.
We first want to try out what's there for us and, you know, start our own business, do a startup. So we actually lived in London for a month just to test out the startup scene there. We were pitching to investors. We had a business idea, an app for healthcare, and then we were, you know, talking to venture capitalists. We were looking at other teams pitching to investors. So that's how we already had the mindset of we want to do something ourselves, and we were constantly researching for any other passive income streams. You know, it doesn't have to be property specifically, but it can be anything else. But that actually landed us, you know, into property investing. And I'm sure you guys know about Rich Dad Poor Dad. We went on to a free workshop, and then we signed up for further training courses. I think it was called Legacy back then. Now they have changed their name. So we've gotten a lot of knowledge out of that, and that sort of kickstart our property investing journey.
Cool. And like, so you never actually sold yourself to the devil in terms of going and getting a corporate job and getting involved in a 9 to 5 rat race. Then you just managed to go straight from university into entrepreneurship and investing in property, right?
Yeah, I think back then we were thinking we had nothing to lose. We had no family here. We had almost close to zero savings. So we had nothing to lose. So and we had everything to gain. So it's like it's now or never. We're super young. We have the energy. We have the right mindset to just start something new. So why not do it now?
Actually, I had a job, was sort of a freelancing job, and I had that on the side. So that kept us like going and covering the basic necessities.
Yeah.
But I try to scale back as much as possible so we can focus on the property business.
Okay, so you didn't have much savings, you didn't have much money there to just go and buy, put a deposit down and all the rest of it. So what was your strategy to adopt right at the start when you didn't have any money, like, and you were still in Glasgow? Tell us a little bit about the beginnings.
So in the beginning, the first major step was actually us going for that property training course. That's where it was actually quite expensive, cost a couple of tens of thousands of pounds back then. And I just thought I'm going to learn there what I really need to know. And well, we learned what we needed to know. And we borrowed money for that course because I thought back then, if it's a mistake, we're young enough to iron it out over the next couple of years and pay it back. Worst case is we go back to a job and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you managed to get some money from family or? Yep.
Yeah, so for our first deal, we actually we put everything on credit cards for the refurbishment, took out the most expensive bridging loan just to get the highest lending. We just needed to get that first deal over the line. It was actually just the cheapest buy to let in Hamilton.
I remember you guys were looking in some pretty rough areas. Well, Hamilton's like not that rough. I mean, there's good parts of Hamilton as well, but there's some, you guys started off like round about the kind of like, was it like 40,000, 50,000?
Exactly. Our first purchase price was 39,500 just to be under the stamp duty threshold. And it just needed a light refurb. So the cheapest possible deal that we could find and remortgage on the back end. That's what we went for. And with that, after that deal, we were going from talking about doing property to doing property. And we just told our friends and family about it. We had a business plan. This is what we do. This is the first property that we bought. So to prove the concept. And that's how we started to raise funds from our family then.
Yep. And what sort of year was that then? 2017?
17, yeah.
Okay. So basically with that first property, did you buy that cash then with investors' cash with your...
Well, that was bridging.
Oh, sorry, bridging you used, right? Okay.
So bridging, and then we funded the refurbishments on credit cards and just literally that was the last penny. If anything went wrong on that deal, we wouldn't have known where to get the money from besides lending, borrowing from friends and family.
Yeah. No, I remember you guys doing the little videos and stuff like that. And then you would be like driving around and it was like the vlogs. And I really loved those because it made me, although I'd only met you once, I felt like I trusted you already just from those videos. And like Marcus, you were going around and it was quite clear, like you didn't really know much about property refurbishment. And you said that, I think, yourselves in the videos, but obviously you're just learning all the way. And I think that's what makes people just like and trust you. So, you know, in amongst doing those first renovations and those little small deals, you've obviously been building up your brand and getting your name out there as well. So let's just roll it on a couple of years. How did that progress then?
So after that first deal, we actually went on to, well, documenting everything on social media because our circle of friends here is not that big because we just came here to study. So we don't have the past 20 years worth of friends. They're all back in Germany and Singapore, right? So social media, we needed to do that in order to show our friends, this is what we do. And you can just watch it on YouTube and, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever channels we started building up then. And after we raised the first, well, tranche of funds from our family, that enabled us to do 3 deals at the same time. And with that, our learning curve just, well, exploded. Now we learned about refurbishments. We learned about doing 3 projects at the same time, project managing different builders and all that. And we documented all of that. And it just, well, snowballed from there.
So just like one of the questions that we get a lot in the podcast is from our younger audience, you know, as a student or, you know, somebody who's first just starting out in property and, you know, they don't have any experience and they might find it difficult to get a mortgage as well. What would your advice be to a young person? Because, you know, you guys are still pretty relatively young and only 3-4 years ago, you were still at university. So have you got any kind of advice to offer?
I would say definitely learn how to raise money. That is such a vital skill. You will need it for the smallest deal. You will need it for the largest development deals. The skill, learning how to raise angel finance. And then apart from that, so raising finance itself takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, you have to build up your own brand. People have to like and trust you. So during that time, try sourcing. So sourcing would give you that exposure to investors in the network. It helps you build up knowledge in terms of refurbishment, learning your area, building up your team of builders, team of agents who then trust you in completing a purchase. So yeah, go down the route of sourcing and building up that income stream first.
And did you guys manage to do a bit of that deal sourcing as well once you started documenting? Did you manage to find other people to work with out with your close circle of family as well?
So as soon as we were able to raise that first tranche of finance, private finance from our families, we were out. We were just ramping up our activities, and we were out viewings, putting out offers, and to a stage where we were getting more deals accepted than our own funds can fund. So then we thought, okay, these are still good deals that we don't want to, you know, just pull out of. Maybe we can monetize them. And so we got ourselves fully compliant and fully registered. You know, all the documentations are in place so that we can source to other investors. So we sourced a couple of deals, but we were not predominant. We're not focusing on that. We were still, you know, doing our own projects and making sure that we get them over the line.
Okay, so you're now currently living in Warrington and you've fled Scotland. You had enough of Glasgow. What was it that made you move down there? Well, actually, first of all, the properties that you acquired up in Hamilton, Glasgow area and stuff like that, have you still got any of them or?
Yeah, so they are in the good hands of our trusted letting agent, and they're super simple, you know, buy to lets. Once a tenant move in, you never hear from them in the next 2 to 3 years. It's
perfect.
It's simple. And if I were to choose my favorite strategy, I think I would still do buy-to-lets all day long.
Well, that's interesting, just from the point of view that it's kind of like pretty kind of low hassle, kind of, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah, is low hassle. I mean, now that we have moved down to Warrington, we haven't been to our properties in a year, because we moved last year, beginning of the year. And besides seeing the money coming into our account, we don't hear anything from them.
Yeah.
Just tenants are there, they're happy, they live in there, they treat it as their home. Whereas now we have switched our strategy to HMOs. And the reason for that was HMOs in Scotland are a bit more regulated, so it's a bit more tougher to set one up. And there's also a limited demand for HMOs, whereas in England there is, I mean, where we are especially, we chose that area because there's more HMO demand, so we have an easier time of scaling up quicker. And
also it's also our income goal. So why we got into property in the first place is because we want to provide our families with a good retirement. So my parents, for example, in Singapore, there's no pension. So you got to be investing from a really young age on to provide for your own retirement when you're older. So cash flow is really important to us. And after building up our buy-to-let portfolio in Scotland, we found that it was quite a slow process. It was like a lot of work into finding one buy-to-let and then doing the refurb, going through the refinance. It's a lot of work to get one deal done. But then when it comes to HMO, it's the same amount of work. Only one refinance instead of 6 refinances, and then you get 5 times or 6 times the cash flow. So that is the main factor that pushed us towards doing HMO. And we know a lot of people who scale up really quickly and manage to get out from their jobs from doing HMO. So we thought, okay, let's start researching into HMOs and start learning from local investors and networking with them. So we started driving down to England, North England, I think end of mid 2019. And then we were studying the area, we were talking to the local investors. I think it took us almost a year before we got our first deal. Oh, sorry, I think that was probably 2018.
Missed a year,
yeah, mid 2018. Yeah, and then we bought our first one mid 2019. So it's a lot of viewings. It's like every time you start a new strategy, you are starting from scratch again. Even though property is property, but then it's a new area, it's a new strategy. You're talking with HMO officer, you're learning how to make the drawings, the floor plans, working with architect, working with building regs officer and all that. So it's a lot more new people in the picture.
And you also have to be mentally prepared that these are bigger numbers, because you're not just going from a 10-15 grand refurb on a buy to let. Now you're doing 60 to 100 grand refurbs on a HMO, and you're changing the whole internal layout. So it's a completely different ballgame, and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing and you spend the money on the right thing.
Yeah,
that's an important point you mentioned there as well. Like that, you drove to England for a year before you got your first deal. Like a lot of people would give up after 2 or 3 months, and they don't see the amount of work that goes into behind the scenes in property. They just kind of see the finished article on Instagram and a couple of stories. But yeah, it's a lot of work, and you've been resilient enough to now pull this off.
I think it might be just us, because we are quite sort of risk averse, and we want to make sure that we have seen every possible thing that we have seen before we pull the plug and do the first deal. So even when it comes to our first buy-to-let deal, I think we have built 100 houses before we bought our first buy-to-let. So it's kind of the same sort of trajectory when we came into HMO.
See, when it comes to the two of you as a partnership, how would you kind of like describe yourselves? Like, who's the kind of risk taker? Who's the kind of one who brings you back? Or are you both like quite conservative? Like,
I would say she is the engine and I'm the steering wheel. Go, and I'm saying, okay, but we need to go here and there, and she just keeps doing, and then I'm also the brakes where I say, well, let's analyze it a bit more, and it might go both ways, that we could have done more deals, and maybe we have looked at the right deals before and we could have gotten them, but then I feel like I need to tick a couple of more boxes before we jump into that, and that's why it took us over a year to get the first buy to let, and then another year to get the first HMO. But it works out. We have never lost money on a deal.
And I think one important thing here, like the underlying thing here, is how do we actually sustain ourselves when we haven't got that cash flow coming in from our properties yet, because we have this like 1 year sort of down. So effectively it's really stripping back our personal outgoings. So we actually, when we first learned about property investing, we were living in like this new built Glasgow green apartment, and it's like super expensive, and we were paying like the highest rent possible in Glasgow. And then when we learned about property investing, we were like, okay, this is a very foolish financial decision.
I always said the view is very expensive.
Yeah, and that's when we actually stripped back. We give a notice to our landlord, and we want to move out, and we actually downsized to a 1-bed flat in East Glasgow, so Denniston area. And that was like really stripping back our outgoings and making sure that, we're not spending too much on ourselves, because I think it's like scaling back to scale up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that's, Stephen, on you go, mate.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great point. I was going to just ask a quick question before we moved on to more onto the HMO stuff in England. So the portfolio that buy-to-lets in Scotland was, I think you successfully managed to refinance and pull all the investors' money back out each deal, or was there any hiccups in any of the deals?
Actually, we've never had buy-to-let deals so far where we've pulled out all of the funds.
Right.
So the typical money in, money out didn't work for us, because first of all, we used bridging finance, which is expensive.
Yeah.
And we just made sure that we have a long-term angel, which is in the beginning our family, where we can leave in the funds. And we made that clear to them. It's not a 1-year thing. It's going to take a couple of years until we can pay back their capital. And they were fine with that. So that's
really interesting, actually.
Sorry?
That's really interesting, actually, because a lot of people go for the quick kind of angel for the single deal in and out, 6 months or a year term. But so how long did you set your term with your angels for then, typically?
Well, with our angels, we typically go for minimum 3 years, because then we have options. We can sell a property if we go onto a 2-year fixed mortgage, or we have most of the cash out, and the remaining cash can come from other sources, or from the cash flow of other properties. Obviously, in the beginning, we didn't have that luxury, so we just needed to make sure we can leave the funds in.
Brilliant. And then when you leave the funds in, I'm assuming it's not a huge amount in each deal. It's how much typically would it be in each property then before you're in the Scottish buy-to-let portfolio?
Like 5 grand, 10 grand.
Yeah. So for me, if I'm leaving 5 to 10,000 in a deal now, I consider that pretty good investment.
Yeah.
I guess that's like different, obviously. If you've got
basically costs £5 for a property.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess it's different if you're trying to pay off investors. And bridging finance could be a bit more stressful. But yeah, that sounds good. So moving down to Warrington, North England, and that, was that scary getting into the bigger numbers? Like, let's just talk about. I'm excited to hear about this kind of starting the HMO, and did you get help did you get a mentor or something like that to kind of help you in the process? How did that work?
So I think when it comes to doing our first deal and exploring the area, studying the area, we were quite terrified when we got keys for our first HMO and about to start the rip out and stuff. We were like super nervous.
Can you just go into the nuts and bolts of that, like location, sort of price, refurb costs?
Yeah, so we pulled the plug because we know of other local investors projects in the area. We know their numbers, we know their done up value, we know the level, the figure where they refinance the property at, we know how much rent they're getting, we know the letting agent they're using, we know the refurb build team that they are using. So it's all like it has pieced the whole puzzle together, and that's when we were confident enough to buy our first HMO. But it's still, of course, yeah, during the rip out phase, we were still thinking, oh my God, are we doing the right thing? This is like a 80 grand refurb. But yeah, it still took us a bit to realize that, we have had everything in place and we shouldn't be doubting ourselves.
So Marcus, what kind of property is this and whereabouts is it?
Yeah, so the nuts and bolts that you were just asking, it's so we found 4 beds semi-detached that we converted into a 6-bed all-en-suite HMO. And if you have a look on our website, it's called Upper Rise. We have the numbers on there. So we bought it for 87,500. The refurbishment was somewhere around 75,000, and you still need to furnish it for another 10 grand. So all in around the 85 grand just to get it up and running. And the refinance value was, where was it?
195.
195, yeah. So just a bit higher than what we've actually spent. But the difference is now you have 6 streams of income from that same property. And where is it located? Just right next to Liverpool. So it's in an area called the Wirral.
And did you find that market really competitive then when you were putting in offers and viewings and stuff like that? How was that?
I think that was like 3 years ago. So,
Right.
but the market wasn't that competitive as it is.
Yeah.
So we were still able to get 2 deals in the same year, offers accepted. And I think the learning that we had on our first HMO was don't be afraid to negotiate, because that one originally our offer was 103, so 103,000, but we discovered with our build team that the whole gable wall would need repointing, and we damp, a lot of damp issues in the house, and we decided to get like a builder's quotation. But before we got that quotation, we were like, are we able to renegotiate the purchase price with the vendor? So then we offered then 85,000, and then they countered offer 87.5. So we were like, okay, yeah, that's really great, we'll take it then. Yeah,
okay.
We realized they were really motivated.
How was this one funded then? Was this one purchased with the investor finance for the purchase price and the renovation as well?
Yeah, it was actually, well, again, bridging. We've used bridging for a lot of our deals. And then by that time, we have refinanced our Scottish properties. So that was, we refinanced 2 Scottish properties and we did a flip at the same time. So there was capital coming back. And we knew that when we did the buy-to-lets. So we thought, okay, this is going to come back in like 8 months' time. What are we going to use those funds for? So that's when we got that HMO accepted, and we used all those funds just straight into that HMO.
So this is really interesting, because it's not like when you hear the purchase and refurb and then the refinance, you don't go like, oh, wow, that's amazing. But tell us a little bit about, it's more about the cash flow, right? So the figures bringing in the rental income and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what's the income from it? And if you break down your costs, what would you say are left? And how are you doing this? Is it like, are you renting it out on a room by room basis to professionals or students? Who's your market?
Yeah, so our target market is working professionals, and these people can be, well, people in the NHS. We have quite some nurses, emergency workers, and also people working in cafes. We have a mechanic. We have people working as a cashier at Lidl. So that is, they're essential people. It's quite unlikely that they get out, well, lose their job, especially now in the pandemic. They're still needed. So they are the people that rent our rooms. We rent out by the room and all bills are included. So that is your high-speed Wi-Fi, water, electricity, council tax. We have a cleaner coming in every 2 weeks for the communal rooms. And then what was the other question?
So cash flow
Cash flow
wise,
wise, yeah. So on a 6-bed HMO, we're talking around 1,200 cash flow.
Okay.
Obviously, way more than on a buy-to-let, but we have roughly spent the same time setting it up.
Oh, that's the cash flow. That's the bottom line. The £1,200.
Yeah.
So the rent is we're renting out rooms for 450. So that times 6. Where are we?
Right. Okay.
100 a month.
That's cool. So a fair bit. Sorry to ask you about all these details, but so basically, there's a fair bit of money tied in there, right? But you're getting this cash flow figure. So you paying out kind of each month to like your investor. How does that kind of work?
Yeah, by now, because we have that cash flow, we can offer to investors. You just get paid from our existing portfolio, so that de-risks it for them. And yeah.
Do you have any idea how that, like, what sort of return that works out at for the investor? Like, is it like 10%, 8%, whatever? Like,
so our
on them?
investors are getting 8%, and some of them wants to be paid annually, and some of them choose to be paid monthly. So we just tailor how they get paid out to every investor individually.
Do you have a letting agent that takes care of the HMO as well?
Oh yeah, we highly recommend having a letting agent for HMOs.
Yeah.
It's a complete.
What's the challenges, by the way? What's the differences? Just like more issues in terms of people coming and going, like moving out?
It's definitely a higher turnover on HMOs because it's more of a temporary accommodation. It's at the end of the day, it's still just a room. So people either they moved out from home and they don't really want to rent a 1-bed flat, or they don't have the funds yet to buy. So they're going for a fully furnished room. And you just know they're not going to stay there for the next 5 years, maybe for 1 or 2 years until they have found the next place. Or they, with their job, they just got relocated. For example, for the NHS, now they work in a new hospital. So they just go for the lowest hanging fruit, and that is a nice looking furnished room.
And I would say like a buy-to-let tenant is the mindset of a buy-to-let tenant is very different from an HMO tenant. Like a family moving into a 2-bed flat or a 2-bed house, they really treat it as their own home. They decorate, they buy their own furniture. If something breaks down, they fix it. A tap is leaking, they reseal it themselves. But then like a HMO tenant, they treat it somewhat like a hotel.
Yeah, like like they want a concierge, like the 24 hours, like.
Yeah, so it's sometimes we get emails from our letting agents say that this tenant in room 2, they can't open their window, they can't operate the handle.
Oh, wow. And you get a call, you have to get somebody out, and then you get something deducted for a call out fee for a maintenance man to go out.
Just to show them that you have to push the button on the handle to open the window. Simple things like that, but yeah.
Well, that's what used to drive me nuts about when I had my service departments in Glasgow. You weren't really, wasn't really property. It was like, you were a hospitality, like you said, like a hotel service. So people like needed instructed for every little things, like, how to work the TV remote control and stuff like that, how to reset the internet. There's no internet now. Like some of my tenants, like you said there, Elsie, we do the inspections, and one guy said to me, the electricity went off and we didn't have any electricity. And I said, all right, you never phoned me about it. He says, oh no, I just dealt with it myself. I called Scottish Power. They came out and they had to dig up the garden and all that, and they they had to replace like a cable. And I was like, all right, but you didn't tell me. Oh, I didn't want to bother you, Nick. I thought I could just deal with it myself,
HMO, they bother you.
Yeah, they make sure they get you to sort it out.
Right, because I guess because they're probably paying a lot more, right? So what is it for a room, like £500-600 a month or something?
$450. They're not paying more than a 1-bed flat. So for one bed flat in the area, they're paying $450 as well, but that's not including council tax, not including bills. not including all the rest of it. But then in HMO, it's more everything included. So effectively, they are saving
Around
maybe
200 a month.
Yeah.
That's what they're saving compared
Right.
to smallest.
And that seems really cheap for like a 4-bedroom house in Liverpool, like 85 or 86,000, whatever you said, like that. That's cheap. And there's got to be some catch there. I mean, obviously,
Yeah, I needed £80,000 spent on it.
oh yeah, true.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, what's the area like? The area quite kind of decent? Obviously, you don't have any problems renting rooms out?
It's all right. So I think in Wirral there are way more big houses, like the big Victorian houses. So you can so the floor size they qualify for HMO rooms.
Yeah.
That's one of the tricky bit where we have to take into account when we're going around to look for rooms. Not all houses fit the criteria.
Yeah.
In terms of area, we look for, of course, the good areas. So it's all about talking to agents and asking them, can you tell me more about this area? Do you like this area? Have there been issues, antisocial behaviors in these areas, these streets? And then they will tell you.
So, Marcus, how many HMOs have you got now then?
How many do we have?
We're just in the process of buying our 5th and 6th one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the same kind of cash flowing again from each of these?
Yeah. So one is
Superb.
going to be eight units, and then one is a straightforward 6-bed.
And all in Liverpool, or have you got in other locations?
Well, now we're just branching out to the greater Manchester area because that's what we like to do. Also diversify in areas, but also areas and tenant profiles.
Yeah, I went down to Manchester last year to a Man City football game with my son, and we spent the night in Manchester. We had a little walk around, and I couldn't believe the absolute buzz about the city and such a cool place. Loads happening, loads of regeneration. You look at the skyline, there's just cranes everywhere. So there's definitely, I mean, some people say that, you know, a lot of the opportunity's gone and it's like obviously come right up already, but I think there must be still good opportunities there.
There's always opportunities. Yeah, you just have to put in your 1 year of research and you will find them.
We also like Manchester more because it kind of reminds us a bit of Glasgow, like all the red sandstone buildings. Yeah, so when we were walking around the city, it gives us some nostalgia.
What do you think it is about the house? Because this is a common question, because everyone's like, why, you know, they all come off the back of the courses down in England buzzing about HMO strategy, then they come back to their home, you know, city, Glasgow, Edinburgh, where HMO is not really a thing. So you said there, you know, it's not, you did touch on it earlier on, but is it about the house, the type of houses as well, like the type of housing stock?
I think it's down to the legislations.
Right.
We have heard from HMO investors in Scotland talking about, you know, getting their HMO license, and there are just more hoops to jump through.
Okay.
England, let's talk about non-Article 4 areas. It's pretty easy. You need a license from 5 bedrooms onwards. So once your 5th tenant is moving in, that's when you apply for the license. And you usually get that within, say, 4 weeks.
Yeah,
it's way quicker, and the bar is not too high.
got you. No, that's interesting. So what are the? Sorry,
Scotland will be in the rear view mirror now then, with single buy-to-let units, if you're getting such good cash flow from the HMOs in Manchester now.
Well, we're actually still working with people who are sourcing properties in the Glasgow area because we know the area and we know what a good deal looks like. So as we said earlier, buy-to-lets, you just don't hear from them. So we wouldn't say no to a good deal, obviously, if the numbers stack.
We won't stop buying buy-to-lets in Scotland.
Yeah, well,
that's interesting.
Yeah, because
people do find like the kind of buy-to-let strategies the kind of unsexy side of property, because it's, you know, basic renovations, basic kind of, you know, flats and houses that aren't very desirable, but they're a good tenant demand, and you get a few £100 a month cash flow from it and you park it. But like you say, it's me and Nick both agree, it's the backbone of a property business, like to have that kind of, it's probably as passive as you can get in property, I would say.
100%. It's like the best foundation that you get. So in terms of property investing, we often think about our exit strategy as well. So for example, once we set up a HMO, and if we were to sell it maybe 2 or 3 years down, we can only sell it to a HMO investor. Whereas for a buy to let, you can have it empty and you can sell it to a first time buyer, you can sell it to a family, but if you have it tenanted, you can sell it to a buy to let investor. So it's you have a lot of options there in terms of exit.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I was listening to another podcast that starts with an I. I'm not going to mention the full name, but they are big, heavy HMO investors round about Manchester area as well. And they were actually talking about diversifying into buying some single buy-to-lets as well. So interesting that other people are doing that as well. So the buy-to-let, like you said, it's not an amazing cash flowing strategy, but as Stephen touched on there, definitely good foundation as well.
Yeah, I think it's still crucial to sort of stabilizing your portfolio and like de-risking your portfolio.
And would you guys have had the confidence to go into the bigger HMO, especially the refurbs, like £80,000 renovation is a big renovation. Would you have the confidence to do that if you hadn't done your smaller buy-to-let renovations, flips, and
so where did we get the confidence from? First of all, knowing it in theory, how does it work from the courses? Then second step was knowing people who are doing it, so they confirm it with real life numbers. Then us going down to England for a year, looking at houses and seeing the sort of purchase prices, going for builders, renovations, seeing their before, during, after stages, asking them exactly how much did that refurbishment cost, and just getting used to those numbers.
So when it comes to like buy to let refurb, it definitely was crucial to our learning in terms of the costing behind the refurb. So we build up sort of that knowledge from our buy to let. We have like a refurb costing sheet, which then we had to expand to adapt to our HMO strategy. So then we already know how much it is to put a carpet down or to refurbish a kitchen. Now we're just adding on more things like fire alarm, fire doors, more expensive heating system. Yeah, so stuff like that.
No, it's been a really interesting chat, guys. I mean, what age are you guys anyway? Just out of interest.
29 this year. No, wait, 30.
You're turning 30 this year. Yeah.
Elsie?
I just turned 29 last
That's
December.
cool. And what amazed me was like, I know you said it took you a year before you bought your first HMO and that, but like, you bought your first one 2019 and now we're, at the start of 2021. And in that small space, you've now got to like 5, 6, you're talking about HMOs. So that's amazing. That's just blown my mind. It just makes me look like a complete tortoise. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think that there's kind of two things of looking at this. I think the thing about you guys is, you're young, you've not got any ties. I think you mentioned it in another podcast as well. There was nothing holding you back. That decision to move to Warrington and start investing in HMO, there was like literally nothing holding you back in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So, hats off.
Yeah.
So what does the future hold for you guys then? What's next?
Well, for now, it's expanding our HMO knowledge, and well, not the knowledge, but setting up more HMOs, because we already know the areas, we know the numbers, we know everything. We just need to find the right properties.
To give you something more concrete, we were actually doing our goal setting in the last couple of weeks, as we all do as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So
and our goals this year is to find flips that give us 150k flip profits, and also set up 3 HMOs this year.
Brilliant.
Superb. Love those goals.
Good stuff, guys. That sounds really good. So what you kind of obviously you guys are really good at networking. I've seen you in action even right at the start. you were in that room and in the Village Hotel, and you definitely were not just hiding in the corner. You were up talking to loads of people. So, you know, how can people get to connect with you, chat with you? And who are you looking? Are you looking to partner up with people? Give us a little bit about that.
Well, so we are constantly raising finance for our deals, and people can reach out to us on Instagram. We are on Instagram, Elsie and Marcus, and also on YouTube. We post all our project updates and learnings, struggles, successes on our YouTube channel. Just search for Elsie and Marcus, you will find it. Yeah, and you will find all our details on there. You can book a call with us, half an hour free consultation. We're happy to share our knowledge and help everyone who is starting out on their journey.
We also have a newsletter on our website, so that's em-investments.co.uk, and you can sign up for our newsletter.
Excellent, guys. That's been a really good chat, and I've really enjoyed going through your journey and what you've been up to. So, yeah, I feel like I know you pretty well, and I look forward to following your progress further on social media. So thanks for being part of the Scottish Property Podcast.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Right, guys, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed that chat, and if you are able to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be very much appreciated. We'll give you a wee shout out. Also, if you want to screenshot the podcast and put it out on your Insta stories, we will also share that to all our followers as well. We really appreciate you listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks very much, guys.